Most people will tell you that the Métis founded and created the Red River Jig. I don't think anybody really knows where jigging came from. Maybe it was first documented with Métis people, but really jigging is everyone's dance. And everyone, at least in Western Canada, for the most part, jigs. Hello, my name is Modeste Mckenzie and I am 26 years old. I am from Ronge, Saskatchewan, but I live in Prince Albert. I've been jigging for about 13 or 14 years with a number of different square dance groups from Saskatchewan, like the Northern Prairie Dancers based out of Prince Albert, Cree-Land Dancers based out of Beardies and Okomasis, and the Qu'Appelle Valley Square Dancers based out of Saskatoon. I'd like to acknowledge two of my teachers, Maria Campbell, who is a Métis elder, and Yvonne Chartrand, who is from Vancouver, BC, and has her own dance company called Compagnie Venez Danser, which means come and dance with me in Michif. So I've been dancing for about 13 or 14 years, and my very first teacher was Yvonne Chartrand. She taught me my basic Red River Jig, my traditional Red River Jig, and then she started me off with my first 10 moves. And I was fortunate enough to learn at the Batoche National Historic Site. Originally, I was a sound boy for a production, and the night before our opening show, one of the dancers rolled one of his ankles in a gopher hole. And they looked around and they were trying to find a dancer, and they couldn't find anyone. So they said, "Hey, do you know how to dance?" And I said, "No." But they taught me anyway, and the next day I performed my first show. So I had less than 24 hours to learn how to jig before I was up performing in front of an audience. Ooh, that's a good question. In my mind, well, a lot of people look at jigging sort of like they do, sort of like figure skating, and that it's more of a competitive dance. But really, when you break it down, and the way I view it, it's more of an art. It's more of an expression of yourself. It's more of an expression of your culture. And if you're dancing with a group, it can be an expression of that group. And really, competitions can be fun, but what matters most is that you're having fun. You're having fun with your friends and your family and your community. So, most people will tell you that the Métis founded and created the Red River Jig. But I've had the pleasure of dancing in multiple provinces throughout the country. And every time I'm in a new territory, for instance, I was in Manitoba and I met this Ojibwe elder, and we were standing on the floor at the MTS Center watching people square dance. And he looked at me and he said, "You know, those damn Métis stole our dance." And I was so offended because I believe that Métis people created the Red River Jig. And then I was in the far north in a Denning community, and the same thing happened, and elder said that to me. And then I was in Alberta in Cree territory, and a Cree elder told me that. But really, I don't think anybody really knows where jigging came from. Maybe it was first documented with Métis people, but really jigging is everyone's dance. And everyone, at least in Western Canada, for the most part, jigs. Today I'm going to be teaching you a few different changes of the Red River Jig. I'll also be teaching a basic contemporary jig and a basic traditional jig with a few traditional fancy steps and a few contemporary fancy steps. And then a showcase of a mix of both. I would say the number one rookie mistake for beginners is that they're just thinking about the dance too much, and they're too technical. They're trying to copy someone like me who's been dancing for 13 or 14 years, when really just let your body move. Everyone has their own style of jigging, you know, and just to have fun with it. The first move that I want to teach you today is the basic contemporary jig. And when you go full speed, this is what it looks like, and this is what it sounds like. So I'll just slow it down a little bit, and I'll put a small variation on it, and it should be a little easier to attempt. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use your dominant leg. So for me, that's my right leg. And you're going to want to tap on the ground just once. And then after that, you're going to flick your foot, the same foot. So tap, flick, left foot, tap, flick, right foot, tap, flick, tap, flick, tap, flick. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So it helps if you say that to yourself in your head. So tap, flick, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And just to break that small flick down, what I'm doing with my foot is I'm going out, in. So 1, out, in. 1, out, in. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And a small exercise that I like to do to get my feet warmed up is I like to just flick my feet like this. And with jigging, what you want to do is just repeat the same move over and over and over again until your body just knows how to do it and you don't have to think about it. So jigging requires very little thinking and just doing. So that's the first step, and it's called the basic contemporary jig, or at least that's what I call it. Everyone has their own name for it. And there's a bit of a fancier variation that you can put on it where you use your heel. So you go heel, toe, heel, toe. So that one's a little bit harder. There's a bit of a jump to it, but you start off going heel, toe, 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 heel, toe, 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 heel, toe, 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 heel, toe, toe, toe. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that one's a little bit tougher. So if it doesn't come right away and doesn't come naturally, don't be too hard on yourself. It's a tougher one to do. So the next move that I want to teach is called is the traditional basic step, and this was taught to me by Yvonne Chartrand. So this one would be, I don't know, I want to say at least 100 years old, maybe older. But it's important to remember that everyone has their own separate style. There's no one specific way to jig. Everyone has their own style. So nobody has to fall in line. And if you do it a bit different, that's okay. Just go with the flow. So what that looks like is you hit your heel on the ground, hop, and bring your foot down and tap twice. And it doesn't sound as nice with the clickers, but this is what it looks like. Heel, toe, toe. So that's an older style. And what you're doing is you're going forward with your foot, with your heel, and you're kicking a rock down the road, like when you're a kid. That's what it reminds me of. So you're 7 years old, you're walking down the road, and you see a rock, and you want to kick it. And then you bring your foot back into a circle, and just tap twice. Kick, 1, 2, 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 kick, 1, 2. And that one's a little bit easier, and make sure you hop in between. So And you can, with that move, you want to stay nice and low to the ground, because with more traditional jigging, typically you keep your feet lower to the ground so you can do more and more moves. Modern jigging competitions, you only do about 3 to 4 moves, but with traditional jigging, people would dance all night and they do like 100 changes in a row. So that one's more about conserving your energy. So traditional, and I'll switch to contemporary. Yeah. All right. Now there's a couple more that I can teach. And this one is for usually older folks, or if I'm feeling lazy and I'm tired. So this one's pretty easy. What you want to do is just kick your feet, again, like you're kicking a rock down the road, and step 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Then with your other foot, you kick like you're kicking a rock down the road. Step 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Kick. 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 And just say it in your head or out loud. 1, 2, 3. Kick. 1, 2, 3. Kick. 1, 2, 3. Kick. 1, 2, 3. Kick. And then usually, when you go a little bit faster, it gets a bit of a different beat. And if you want to get really fancy, instead of kicking, you can do the foot flick that we did earlier. And that changes the sound to it as well. And you can add 3 steps in there just for the heck of it if you want. Okay, so that's a slower type of jig. Often, if we're in competition, it's called a first change, and it's really fun. So the last sort of basic jig that I want to teach you, and I haven't taught this one before, but I see it all the time, and I spent some time in Wollaston in the far north, and in Dene communities, they have their own distinct style, and I think it's really cool. So I'll just provide you with a quick little demonstration. And typically in competitions, I've seen usually the smoother dancer wins. So, but this is what it looks like. So. So it sounds a little bit like a horse, and I was actually taught this move as a fancy step from my teacher years ago. So then when I seen it up north, I was mind blown, and I don't know where exactly that exchange happened, but this is like the basic contemporary or the basic jig in the far north here in Saskatchewan at least. So what you want to do is you want to flick your foot. So flick, step, flick. And with your other foot now, flick, step, flick. And then back to the other foot. Flick, step, flick. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So yeah, those are the 4 basic jigs that I wanted to teach you today. For this next part, I'd like to teach you a fancy step or a change. So in every single Métis, indigenous fiddle tune, there's two parts to the fiddle. There's an A part and there's a B part. And if you listen to the Red River Jig, there's like a high part and a low part. So on the first part, that's when you do your basic step like this. And then the music will change and you'll want to switch over and do a fancy step. And there are hundreds and hundreds of fancy steps. Some of them are old, some of them are new, some of them are like crip walking, some of them have tap dancing components, some of them have clogging components into it. A lot of the modern stuff just is, it's not really jigging. It's just a combination of many other dances. And it's a lot of fun to do. So for this one, I'll teach you one easier fancy step and one more difficult fancy step. And the first fancy step that I want to teach you is really simple. We call it the crossover. And all you're going to do is just cross your legs over like this. Really, that's it. That's the motion that you want to make. But you want to add a little bit of a hop in there, and you want to flick your feet every time you cross over. So it sounds a little bit crisper when you have your taps on. So it looks like this. This is pretty much like the motion, but the sound that you want to go for is like this. So it's really hard to add that foot flick in there, but really, so you're going 1, 2, and then 1, 2. Yeah, so I'll do it again. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And when you break it down fast, I'm sort of doing my last two flicks on the outside. So 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. Sorry, this is hard to break it down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll just do it one more time. Oh, geez. Alrighty, so that's called the crossover. And this next one is a little bit harder, and it's definitely a move that you can't think about it when you're doing it. You just have to do it. Your body just has to know how to move. And it can take quite a bit of time to train your body. But this is an old traditional move, so it'll sound like a horse. All traditional moves will sound like a horse. And that's how you can differentiate between traditional jigging and contemporary jigging. So we'll start off really slow, and you're gonna wanna put your heel out, and then you're gonna, with the foot, and then you're gonna put all your weight on your other foot, and you're gonna lift your heel twice, so 1, 2. And then you're gonna shift your weight again, and put your other heel out, and then tap your heel on your other shoe and go 1, 2. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And when you do it fast, it should sound like a horse. And there's different variations you can put on this move. So you can go forward with your feet, you can go to the side, or you can do sort of like a crossover, and I'll demonstrate. So you can go forward like this. Or you can go to the side. And then you can also do like sort of a crossover and where you rotate your feet just like kind of back and forth. So it looks like this. So the important thing to remember though when practicing this move is just to start off slow. It's going to take a while. And just tap your heels as fast as you can. For the first little while, you're going to have to tell your body to tap your heels. And then it just gets easier from there. So the key to that one is just persistence and keep doing it over and over and over again until you don't have to think about it. And it sounds like this. So now you've seen the basic jigs and you've seen the fancy steps and the changes. Let's put them all together.
Okay. Starts the opposite.